And my record is so pro-choice, Nancy Pelosi asked me if I should tone it down. I stand with Planned Parenthood, and we won.
And when Congress passes a law to restore reproductive freedoms as President of the United States, I will sign it into law.
Can I get an amen?
Amen. Now on with the show.
And remember, you better vote.
So to Minnesotans, know that your access to reproductive health and your right to make your own health care decisions are preserved and protected.
I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need.
Stop killing us. How do we get those men to stop killing women of color? We are hunted.
I know.
Systematically.
I know.
How do we do that?
No, you're right.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
You must have and know that you are applauded for having the ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been.
Since Kamala Harris has become the new Democratic nominee with Tim Walz as her vice president, many of their supporters are trying to convince people that they are not radical. Let's take a look at some of the things that they have said and come to our own conclusions. During Pride Month, we saw Kamala Harris holding a meeting to talk about problems in America related to people who think their gender is different from their biological one. What were her main concerns about this issue?
This year alone, there were 250 bills around the country, and including prohibiting youth from receiving medical care and participating in sports, the prohibition on people being able to access a restroom.
Kamala is very concerned that children cannot receive medical interventions to change their gender, and that they cannot compete in sports with people of the opposite sex. She is also worried that men who dress up as women, for example, cannot go into the women's restroom. This is pure evil because it puts women and children in danger. Here she is again, talking proudly about how she fought for criminals in jail to be able to get surgery.
When I was Attorney General, I learned that the California Department of Corrections, which was a client of mine, I didn't get to choose my clients.
Right, a client of the Attorney General.
A client of the Attorney General, right. Of the Office of Attorney General, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners.
Kamala is trying to convince people that she is merciful and caring to criminals by allowing them to surgically change their gender. It's unbelievable to imagine our tax money going to funding for criminals. It is also interesting that she calls them prisoners and not criminals. This phrasing almost makes it sound like they are victims rather than perpetrators of crime.
And there was a specific case, and when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that that woman got the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need. And I believe it was not only, I know it was historic in California, but I believe actually it may have been one of the first, if not the first in the country, where I pushed for that policy in a Department of Corrections.
This is truly shocking. Did they put the woman in the female prison after receiving the surgery? This seems like something out of a dystopian novel. But does Kamala really care about these issues? Some would say that based off of this next video, this is all to gain the support of the radical left.
How do we get those men to stop women of color? We are hunted.
I know.
Systematically.
I know.
How do we do that?
No, you're right.
The way she says, I know, doesn't seem genuine, but she has to completely cater to these kinds of people, no matter how radical or crazy they are, because she has chosen to completely side with this ideology and group of people.
And so I want you to be able to talk. That's what I'm saying. It's a number of things. I mean, one, there has to be serious consequence and accountability when it happens. There needs to be a safe place for the members of our community to go when they have been exposed to that kind of harm, and we know there's not always a safe place.
The idea that the government is systematically persecuting and hunting down women of color is simply not true, and there is simply no actual evidence that this is taking place. Tim Walz is even more radical on this issue. He even signed an executive order to make sure people of all ages can medically change their gender.
Minnesota is going to provide and to receive health care services. And what that means is by outlawing gender Healthcare states across this country are working to prevent necessary evidence-based treatments. We know this urgency is real, thus the need of an executive order today.
To say that there is an urgency to perform horrifying medical procedures on people who are mentally ill is incredibly shocking. He even believes this should be done for children.
As governor, I'm committed to do all of the resources and the power invested in the office of governor and lieutenant governor of the state of Minnesota is there to make sure that your children and your families are protected, are respected, are able to make the choices so that you can live that very authentic life that is only truly yours.
So Tim doesn't think that children should be able to drive, but he does think that they should be able to consent medically to changing their own gender. And to him, this is loving.
When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
So if a young girl says that she is a boy, it's our job to not question that and let them get surgery to medically change their gender. And Tim claps for this vigorously.
You have our commitment today, and this executive order we're signing will reaffirm state law, it will refocus state agencies on that, and it will make sure that Minnesota's place as a welcoming, loving, neighborly state where you are welcome and will be free of persecution or anything else that we're trying to see in some other states. In this state, those things don't hold anything. In this state, hate has no home. In this state, love and acceptance is what we preach, and we will live by that.
Again, Tim thinks that persecution is not letting children get these procedures. Will he really try to convince people that he is a moderate?
If you look at that issue and you understand what's going on in the school system right now as they try to seduce children at the age of 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old, what they're doing is kids for the community in the future. That's the most dangerous place you could ever put a child.
Another issue that both Kamala and Tim are radical on, as they call it, is reproductive health care.
And we, who believe in reproductive freedom, will stop Donald Trump's extreme bans because we trust women to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do. And when Congress passes a law to restore reproductive freedoms as President of the United States, I will sign it into law.
It has been said that Kamala and Tim would be the most radically pro, quote-unquote, reproductive health care ticket in history. Who knows how far they would try to take this?
Tim and I have a message for Trump and others who want to turn back the clock on our fundamental freedoms. We're not going back. We're not going back.
It's hard to watch these two be so gleeful about the idea of a culture that normalizes ending the life of their own children. And really quickly, if you want to support this channel and help spread biblical truth to more people, I would be so grateful if you would click that subscribe button. They really are not moderate at all and have plans to go even further than Roe versus Wade.
And so let me say about Tim Walz, he has shown up to stand against these attacks long before he stood on the stage with me. After Roe was overturned, he was the first governor in the country to sign a new law that enshrined reproductive freedom as a fundamental right. And with Tim Walz by my side, when I am President of the United States and we win majorities in the United States Congress, we will pass a bill to restore reproductive freedom, and I will proudly sign it into law.
They would both proudly sign into law a bill that would cause millions of children's lives to end. Tim is probably the most radical on this issue than anyone in politics. Take it from him.
And my record is so pro-choice, Nancy Pelosi asked me if I should tone it down. I stand with Planned Parenthood, and we won!
This is scary, and not something to be proud of. But he's right, his record is truly pro-choice in the worst way possible.
It establishes reproductive freedom as a fundamental right for every Minnesotan. More than 100 lawmakers joined the governor as he signed that bill.
So to Minnesotans, know that your access to reproductive health and your right to make your own health care decisions are preserved and protected. And because of this law, that won't change with the political winds or the makeup of the Supreme Court. This is a bill for Minnesotans today and all future generations.
He should have said all generations except the generations of the children that will lose their lives because of this law.
The righteous person will show regard for the life of his beast. Even the beast, the righteous will show concern for. It says this though, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. The mercy of the wicked is cruel.
It's hard to say if Kamala even really believes in the positions she says she holds. So often she comes across as not being genuine and trying to put on a show and make herself look good.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
Either she doesn't understand simple questions, she doesn't understand the significance of the question, or she is lying. And she seems disingenuous like this quite often. Watch what happens when she is asked what she is going to do about inflation.
What else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, and families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more.
Her answer to the question, what are you going to do to prevent inflation, is just defining what inflation is.
And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life for all people in our country. So it's a big issue, and we take it seriously. And it is a priority, therefore. So
it's hard to tell what she's thinking. What is her goal by giving that response? It seems like she just wants to get out of the question. Even if she doesn't know the answer, many Americans would prefer honesty over whatever that was. It would be one thing if that only happened once, but it's something that actually happens quite often.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past, but the future.
The point that she is making is not actually invalid. We do need to recognize where we are in history so that we can prevent making the same mistakes again. But it seems like her desire to come off as intelligent prevents her from just saying things how they are. A perfect example of this is her using woke language to get certain people to like her. Watch as she tells Chris Cuomo that she is a woman as if he didn't know already.
And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
She, her, and her? Mine too.
It's almost like she didn't acknowledge Chris's joke because if he were actually saying that he was a woman, she would have to go along with it in order to be consistent with her ideology. This is just giving up a grip on reality.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
After clarifying that she is a woman, which should have already been obvious, why does she talk about sitting at the table and wearing a blue suit? Maybe there were blind people in the room, or maybe Kamala just doesn't actually understand how the left system of self-identification is supposed to work. Unfortunately, it's not just Kamala and Tim who hold such radical views. The Democratic Party is filled with people holding radical positions on these issues. Take a look at what Stacey Abrams says about ultrasounds giving the idea of babies' heartbeats.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body.
This isn't just evil, it's also completely nonsensical. This is based on nothing but a desire to be approved of by her radical counterparts, and to convince people that won't actually do the research themselves. This is proof that, as the proverb says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
She's running for governor of Georgia, and she argued that what we heard just now is something that's been manufactured in order to deceive women. I mean, that's how far people will go. That's how deeply ingrained this is.
Another popular politician who is just as bad is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Watch as she insinuates that men can be pregnant while being outraged that some women can't end the lives of their own children.
And it is precisely because of Donald Trump and his corrupt court that women and girls and pregnant people have less rights today in 2024 than our parents and grandparents did. And we will not stand for that.
Evil, wicked, spiritual warfare. And there are people today who are enraged. There are people who are actually in mourning today. Do you hear me? There are people who are on their knees sobbing in tears because something less than 3,000 plus babies a day are going to be murdered in this country. And for them, that is just unthinkable. That is spiritual wickedness in high places.
We need to pray for Kamala, Tim, and the rest of the Democratic Party, that they would repent of their sin and turn to Jesus Christ in faith. Psalm 2 says that the rulers of the earth must kiss the Son, lest they perish in the way, because his wrath is quickly kindled. At the end of the day, God is in control, and all of this will turn out for his glory. Let's fight for a better future while never losing sight of that precious truth.
When we go to the polls, we are intending to exercise that justice and that righteousness that God requires of us by casting our ballots for representatives with whom we identify, not because of their ethnicity, not because of their party, but because of their stances on various issues that relate to the justice of God. Because remember, God will judge not only us, but he will judge our society as a whole based on whether or not those who represent us stand for the justice that he requires.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm a deacon, a husband, a father, a software engineer, and an amateur maker of videos. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help me in my mission to spread biblical truth, just subscribe and watch these videos until the end, which will help the YouTube algorithm recommend these videos to more people. I'm committed to using the skills and gifts God has given me to glorify him and communicate biblical truth, and I would be so grateful if you would come be a part of what I'm building. You can visit my website at joyfulexile.com to learn more about me and what I'm working on. I hope you're having a blessed day. I will see you in the next video, and remember, this world is not our home.